Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Sponsored by Gametime. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Welcome back to the Raider Squad Show. Remember, if you like the content and you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button because that always helps the channel grow. And if you're listening to this on the audio side, we do appreciate you. Remember to leave a rate and review. Give us a 5-star because why wouldn't you? That would help the channel grow as well. And we do appreciate you, Raider Nation, for rocking with us. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, a little bit of a different setup because both Kyu and Link are at the facility today. And it's a huge day because the Raiders are having their joint practice against the 49ers, but you guys are in a media room. Where exactly are you in the facility right now?
It's the back room here. It's the media room, and it's not the biggest room, but it's okay. We're going to make it work. We're in our nice little comfy little surroundings. So, yeah, me and Link side by side. Here we go.
You know how they do, black folks. Put them in the back. Put them in the back. They're far away from tables from the entrance, so you don't have to see them coming in. They're in the back. Yeah, we're in the back.
Well, here on this show, guys, you guys are royalty. By the way, I was telling the guys, and this is really thanks to you, Raider Nation, but the Raider Squad Show is actually number 2 on the Locked On Network, and that's all because of your viewership, the comments that you have, and the fact that you support this channel. So thank you so much. And guys, we're going to get into a lot on this show. We're just going to get into some news and notes from the Raiders, but we're also going to be talking about how Tyreek Hill actually might be linked to the Raiders, according to Sporting News, where they put out an article. We're going to get into the depth chart as well for the preseason week 2 game against the Niners. But that's where we got to start, guys, with the Niners, because the joint practice is today. And, you know, Link, when you're a player playing in a joint practice, what can you tell us about this? How intense is it? What can we expect? And what's the vibe like around the players for this joint practice?
Well, first of all, the players are all amped up. I saw a lot of them this morning when I came over to the facility getting ready for the day. The thing is, Chantel and Q, it's about competition, but it's also about keeping control of your emotions, because if fights break out every other session, practice is going to be over. And then you're going to be mad because you're going to have to do another practice on your own, or teams are going to go in their different directions. So you got to keep cool and calm and control out there. But more importantly, you want to also take care of business, because you are practicing against another team, other players. You see other jerseys and other helmets on the other sideline. There's a competitive spirit that should come out of you, to where you want to do your job the absolute best. So when you're going to see the teams come together, mostly in team drills like 9-on-7, 11-on-11. They'll also have a little skeleton drill, which is 7-on-7, a passing drill, your pass offense versus our pass defense. All in all, if you're Chip Kelly or you're the Raiders, you don't want to show too much, but you also want to go out there and set your guys up to succeed. Everything is scripted. So that's what you're preparing for a day like this. Keep the fights down, keep the practice going, and find a way to get through it.
You know, you can tell, Link, as you were here yesterday as well watching practice, that they were preparing for today.
Yeah.
They were not going hard in the paint yesterday. They were making sure that their bodies were ready. They were conditioned. They were indoors yesterday. Today they'll be outdoors, obviously, with the joint practices. And Link hit it on the head, though. You've got to be competitive, but you've got to be smart. You can't go out there and fight every other rep, or else it's going to be worthless. And at the end of the day, you're hoping you get so much good work done today that a lot of the young guys can play in the game on Saturday. If they don't get that work done today, you'll see some other guys playing in that game on Saturday that might not want to do that.
And, you know, you heard Link say you don't want to get into too many squabbles during this time, right? Because we are going to get the reports that a fight broke out, because that's what always happens during these joint practices.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But there's also specific things that you probably want to look out for in this joint practice. Now, you know, Link, you mentioned that you don't want to, like, Chip Kelly's not going to show his entire playbook. He's not going to give them everything, right? But what are a few things that you want to see from specific guys in this joint practice? Because it's going to be totally different from the week 2 preseason game.
You want to see if you can open up the passing tree against the 49ers defense. They've got an aggressive style defense, much like the Raiders. So you want to test your protection. You also want to test your quarterback's sort of scan for the field, pre-snap reads, as well as going through the pass tree, being able to throw those throws and make it against a pretty good defense. So this is a test where you can script and see what you want to see going pretty much close to full speed. In the run game, you can have your version of 9-on-7, but they just won't tackle. So you have a heavy thud, and that's good because that prepares you to go up against a good defense, for the offense to go up against a good defense, and conversely, the other side to go up against their offense and be able to stop them. So it's a great test without all the ramifications that a game would bring in, tackling and all that other stuff. You don't have that. It's what we call thud type of style, but it's going to be pretty hard. The guys are going to be coming one in the lay to wood. You just don't want to take them to the ground.
And I think that you're going to learn a lot about the trenches, the offensive line and the defensive line. You'll really be able to see them put their physicality to the test and see, especially for the Raiders, if this offensive line is coming together. As something that we talk about all the time, the continuity, you've got to have it. Obviously, we talk a lot about Jordan Meredith at the center spot and JPJ as the right guard. Want to continue to see not just those two gel, but the entire offensive line. And this 49ers defensive line is going to be a good one to go up against and see what they actually have. So that's going to be a big test today as well.
And we always talk about continuity on the O-line. They have to be together to build that type of chemistry. But we also heard earlier in the week, I think it was Sunday, like JPJ wasn't practicing, but he has practiced this week heading into this joint practice. So how important is that as well? Because naturally coming into the year, Q and Link, we thought JPJ was going to be the center. Now they've shifted things, but it worked out well, I guess, last year, even though the O-line struggled. How does that kind of feel for him to be switching positions? And like Raider Nation is kind of upset about it. Like, we just don't know how this is going to look, but you got to let the coaches coach, right? Link, you always say this, you got to let the coaches coach.
It's funny though, real quick, and I don't mean to jump in, but it's really funny that we all anointed him as the center, knowing that we don't really know why we anointed him as the center, except for he said that he was going to be the center. Like, now everyone's pounding the table. He needs to be the center. Well, what if he's just a better guard? What if he's the best option at the guard position and Meredith is the best option at the center position? It's more than just being a mauler. It's more than just being a really good blocker. That center position is also about being a really good communicator as well, being able to spit out what the protections are and being able to, identify what's coming up. That's the general, as Jordan Meredith told us yesterday when he met with the media. He said, look, the quarterback is the president and the center is the vice president.
I want to hit you guys to a little term that we used to use back in the day. We used to call it MEM. Who's the mauler in the middle? Now, every successful running team that I've ever watched or ever played for had a mauler in the middle, okay? And what I mean is either center or guard. A lot of times with the responsibilities of the center, it takes away from your tenacity. If you have to go up there and make a call, make an adjustment, it takes away from your tenacity. So imagine this. Just imagine it. You put JPJ at the guard, and you know how tenacious he is as a player, and then he becomes that mauler. You got to have somebody in the middle, a mauler in the middle, because that MEM has got to cut the defense in half. If you want to create run lanes, you got to cut the defense in half at some point, whether it's a backside shift between the guard and the tackle or center and guard. You've got to be able to cut that defense in half. Right now, without JPJ, the Raiders don't have that mauler in the middle. There are young guys that are developing. They don't have that presence in the middle without JPJ in there. I watched Alex Kappa. He didn't practice yesterday. Kappa didn't practice yesterday. And then, of course, we talk about Jordan Meredith, who I think is coming into his own. I think he'll be good. He's just not there yet. Dylan Parham is still a work in progress. This is obviously a prove-it year for him, so we can't necessarily put too much emphasis on him. We've seen in the past, in the short of the year, we saw what JPJ is capable of having that tenacity, flying over piles, wanting to go down and knock down people. That's what you need. That's the attitude you need. The tackles don't necessarily press it. It's not DJ Glaze. It's not Colton Miller. They don't have it. So when you talk about having a thin offensive line, you talk about having a nucleus, you need to have that guy who's that Richie Incognito, who's that Steve Wisniewski. These are guys that I all recognize and played with. Who are those guys? Osemele that was back in the day. All these guys, Kaneche. These guys, you got to have one of those guys in the middle. They have yet to develop. I think JPJ might be that guy.
Well, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up Osemele. Remember, he was a tackle when he was in Baltimore.
Yes, exactly right.
And they brought him over and they put him at the guard spot, and it was him and DP next to each other. It's like, whoa, what do you want to do with those two guys?
Exactly.
That was a problem.
That's what they need.
Yeah.
So for this practice, obviously the vets are going to get some burn, and I think they'll get less, obviously, in that preseason week 2 game, because you want to see the young guys, right? The one thing that I'm focused on in this joint practice is the D-line, right? And I'm talking about the Niners D-line, because they got some guys, a guy like Fred Warner, they got Bosa, they got guys there that can get to the quarterback. So the O-line, to me, is going to be a focus in this joint practice. Is there anybody specifically other than, Meredith and JPJ that you guys are focused on this O-line that you want to kind of see perform in this joint practice? Q?
I think Glaze, right? I think
Definitely.
DJ Glaze. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I'm going to get from Colton Miller, right?
Right.
We know what Colton Miller is going to bring to the table. It's the reason why he just signed his contract extension. But DJ Glaze, I mean, as much as we talk about JPJ being young, Glaze is just as young, right? He's a second-year guy, and there's some reps out there that I've seen, even going back, if you look at the film again from Thursday's game, DJ Glaze is not going to tell you that's his best performance. So I think that DJ Glaze has a lot of still room to grow. We just are so focused on the center and guard spot, we haven't really talked about him, but this is going to be a big test for him as well.
Second-year tackle coming into the league. Obviously, you get exposed last year, and I think he did a solid job. But this year, there are going to be people that are going to come after him. The thing is that the way this offense has been in the past, and it's still a wait-and-see process with Chip Kelly and the new design, is that they've exposed the tackles. And if you watch the Seattle games, you could, because the young tackles were struggling in the second half and into, for pretty much the second quarter and into the second half with hard counts and stuff like that, the noise, you don't have the noise here, but still, can you be effective in this league? And they've got a lot of notable names on the 49ers defensive line. So you had said, Chantel, a moment ago that you don't expect the starters to get that much play. I actually disagree. I think the starters get the most play here that they do throughout the preseason, to be honest with you, because I think it's a true test. You don't do it in the third game, the final game, because the week is condensed and you're getting ready for the regular season. But if we had our wherewithal back in the day when I played, when we had 4 games, it was usually the second and third game that the starters got the most burn, whether you're playing a half or into the second half, that type of thing. I don't think it's going to happen in the third game against the Cardinals.
Right.
I don't think the starters play at all. I don't think you need to see that at all. But I do think they're going to get a good deal of play in this game here at the 49ers.
How could that change if they get some really good burnout here? Say they get 75, 80 really good reps in. I'm just throwing a number out there.
It would probably, in my opinion, it would probably condense from playing a half to playing a quarter.
That makes sense. Yep.
Okay.
Playing 4 series, maybe playing 2 series. And then one of the things that I remember, and I saw it reconfirmed what I knew about Chip Kelly, everything has to move fast. So from the beginning of practice, this up-tempo speed that the Raiders have, getting out and running as many plays as possible. And this is also translated on defense. The way they do things on defense, they are fast on defense. So this entire process is going to be a litmus test, and then see how the 49ers can hang, because Chip Kelly once back in the day wanted to wear defenses out.
Yeah, he did.
So that's why he ran multiple plays. On average, guys, when I played, you get 65 to 70 offensive snaps a game. There were times when I watched Chip Kelly's presence in there, they were going 80, 85, almost 90 snaps a game. That's almost unheard of. But in how will that translate? So I think that Chip Kelly's going to bring that back, that sort of interest back, and he's going to do it that way because he knows that's a fast pace. With that being said, everybody's got to be clicking. Everybody's got to know where to go and know what to do. That's, you got to move 100 miles per hour really fast.
Yeah, great point, Link, in terms of the starters getting a lot more burn in that week 2 preseason game. I want to ask you guys about the defense, because obviously in that first preseason game, we didn't really get to see a lot of the defense, and then there was penalties and things just didn't go really well. In terms of this joint practice, the defense, I feel like they're going to have, especially that D-line, a lot of eyes are going to be on that D-line. Q, is there anyone that you're looking out for in this joint practice on that D-line?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see Malcolm Kuntz, right? I mean, this is a guy that's coming back from a torn ACL, and he's been, a year removed. But as a guy that's torn 2 ACLs, I know that really that second year is when you're the most confident. And look, he's had way better rehab guys than I ever had, right? So I know that he's in a much better position. But now he's going up against someone else. So can he go full throttle? Can he be that true Robin to Max Crosby's Batman right now? So I'm really paying attention to see how Malcolm Kuntz is as far as just health and seeing what he can provide for this Raiders defensive line. And then I want to see the competition in the middle with the defensive tackles. I think that that's a big deal as well. They've got a lot of guys, right? They just traded for Thomas Booker IV. He showed up on film on Thursday. How do those guys in a rotation type setting, how do they, work as a unit and try to provide that push in the middle? Because look, the Raiders defense, for it to be successful, that defensive line is going to have to get home.
Yesterday I watched the defense do rather an interesting little drill where they had 3 stations set up. And each station, they were talking about different ways of angling of tackling. And I think that's going to be key. So what I'm looking for this defense and presence is mostly the secondary, linebacker in the secondary, taking the proper angles to bring things down, bring guys down, because this aggressive style of defense really constricts everything in the middle. It really, from the way the defensive ends shoot at an angle, the way the defensive tackle plays, it clogs up the middle. Most teams are going to try to stretch the outside perimeter. And that's exactly what I think, especially what you saw from Seattle. That's what the 49ers are going to do it too. They're going to test the Raiders outside. They're going to test their corners and their safeties to make sure they are in the right place to see if they're going to make tackles. So I'm more concerned about the secondary level than I am the primary level. I know the defensive line is going to have a rotation, a steady rotation, but that's an aggressive attacking style defense. We're going to see how much, misdirection plays, how many stretch plays the 49ers are going to run to really stretch the perimeter of this defense.
Yeah, and I wanted to know also if you guys have an update on Adam Butler, because I know he was away due to some family stuff. Is he back for this joint practice? Do either of you have an update on that?
Yeah, I didn't see him yesterday, so it's TBD. Yeah. we'll see, but he's obviously a key cog, and he's a wily veteran, so you know that he'll be ready to go. But whatever the family situation is he's dealing with, he's obviously going to deal with that. And when he's done with it, then he'll be back.
Yeah, and I know Raider Nation will be waiting. We just want to see him out there just because we're excited about a guy like Adam Butler, obviously, and he's a great leader in the room as well. Guys, coming up in the next segment, we're going to break down a little bit of that preseason game instead of the joint practice, and we're also going to get into those rumors about Tyreek Hill being linked to the Raiders, how true people think that might be, and if it could possibly work. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching the Raider Squad show. You're also probably listening to the Raider Squad show. So keep it locked here. We'll be right back. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. One of the things that I love about Yahoo Fantasy is just the layout, and in terms of how many mock drafts you can actually do before you actually draft. It makes things a lot easier, and you're getting all the information on the stats there as well. It's just really easy to navigate. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days through August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the new season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. But stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedon. All right, guys. So obviously we have to get into the fact that we are going to be obviously seeing a preseason week 2 game as I try to get the screen set over here, guys. Having a little bit of technical difficulty, obviously.
Hello.
Right?
There we go.
There's none of us now, right? Let's just try to do this again. So as I figure this out right now, for you guys,
that's awesome.
Right? We got to get both of you guys in the screen. we got to get both of you guys in the screen right now. None of this seems to be working, but we're going to figure it out nonetheless.
Half Link and half me.
Exactly.
How about that?
I know, exactly. We need to get both of them on. We need to get both of you guys on. But
that is too funny.
We're together forever.
There it is.
No, I'm going to try to figure it out eventually. Not the solo layout, but I wanted to ask you guys about the preseason game and how you can actually get excited for this. There we go. I figured it out, guys. It took a little bit of while, right? Technical difficulties, as both Kyu and Link are both at the same Raiders facility right now. They got it together for the show for you, Raider Nation. But obviously, preseason week 2, we saw what happened in preseason week 1, and there were so many questions, and some Raider fans were hitting the panic button. But obviously, preseason week 2 is different, right? Like Link said, you guys feel like the starters are going to get a lot more burn in this game. But what are you guys going to be looking out for? Because the joint practice is going to be totally different, I feel. Link?
Yeah, I want to see in particular, I just want to see in between the ears. I want to see them, the fundamental stuff is what bothered me from preseason game number 1 the most. The, pre-snap penalties, the, lack of contain and, just not being able to wrap up when just all that kind of just stuff that is supposed to be fundamental. Like I want to make sure that they're doing that. And the thing is, and Link sees it when he's out here at practice as well, that these guys, when they're going through the practices with each other, they're not tackling to the ground. So they'll go and they'll tag them or else you hear coaches say, stay up, stay up, stay up. Well, in the game, you can't do that, right? In the game, you've got to get back to the fundamentals. So I just want to see them look more sound, look more, like just know what they're doing, right? It didn't seem like they had a ton of confidence, especially in the first half with what they were doing. Now, in the second half, they did bounce back and looked a lot better than what they did in the first half. But I just want to see them come out of the gates and actually look like, this is something that they're working to and they're going to continue to build towards the beginning of the season. So that for me is just really about fundamentals.
Look, let me tell you, Jamal Adams isn't going to go slow on Christian McCaffrey when he's coming through the line
right
in this practice. Okay. And I wouldn't expect him to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, and I use that as an example of how guys are going to be. When you see that other jersey coming downhill, you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be part of you where you have to sort of hold up, and especially in practice where you're not supposed to go down to the ground, don't tackle and stuff. But there has been such an emphasis on the last couple of practices from what I've seen, this defense has emphasized taking the right angle and taking the guy down, putting your head in the right place and taking the guy down. I mean, and learning how to do that. Now, I say that to say this, you're going to practice that technique without fully extending or going through the whole motion to where you are taking them to the ground. How does that translate into the game? Well, I want to see guys take it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see guys play hard today, do your job today, whatever your responsibility is, whatever amount of time you're out there, and whomever you are, go up against the next guy that's across from you because he's got a different jersey on and take it to the next level when the game starts on Saturday. But right now, I want to see that tenacity. I want to see that competitive spirit come out of you to where you want to show fight and you want to show why you deserve to be here and why you should be a Raider. And that's why the 49ers are on the other side of the ball. You want to show how you can play against another team.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm excited to kind of see is just the tackling, because I think today in this joint practice, guys are going to tackle. Right, because there were a lot of missed tackles in that first preseason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because
there are going to be guys who are going to end up tackling because they have that ferocity about them. Oh my gosh, I got to make the play. But at the same point, there's going to be fights. How long does this practice go on together, or before you split the two teams up and say, okay, you guys go over there, we'll go over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, it's like they've been tackling the guys in the same jersey as them. Right. So now it's like, okay, I see a Niners jersey. I see some of that red. Let me go tackle this guy and really tackle him, because that first game, a little bit frustrating seeing some missed tackles. But so Link, for you, what was like the shortest joint practice you were ever a part of in terms of squabbles breaking out? And what's like, I need to know this.
About, I would say probably after individual and warm up, that takes usually probably the first 30 minutes or 40 minutes of practice. Just your individual sessions and stuff like that, your breakdown. And then I think we were over the first one time against the Cowboys within less than an hour.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, when we went through a 9-on-7 drill, and the moment the 9-on-7 drill happened, we had somebody that tried to tee off, and next thing you know, helmets were grabbed and we were fighting. And we had a mode back in my day. One of us fought, all of us fought.
Yep.
It didn't matter who was on the field. Was it offense or defense? One of us fought, all of us fought. And I remember collectively when, Chester McLaughlin was here, may he rest in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He jumped the line of scrimmage. He actually said, because we were practicing in El Paso, it was the second practice of a 2-a-day. He's like, I'm going to jump off sides, and I'm going to jump off sides and hit whoever the center was at the time. I think it was Nate Newton, and so he did. He jumped off sides and hit Nate Newton, and everybody got in his face. And of course, here comes the offensive line, defensive line. One of us fights, we all fight. So you'll see that. And coaches are blowing the whistle and trying to get between guys, but hey guys, this is hot. It's going to be hot here.
Yes,
it's going to be hot, and you know what I mean. But here, if Trent Williams is out there and he's going up against Malcolm Kuntz, an old time vet versus a young guy, he's not going to let Malcolm Kuntz get the best of him.
Right.
And Malcolm, how does Malcolm respond? How does the right tackle block Max Crosby?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Max wants to set the tone.
Absolutely.
That Max wants to definitely set the tone. I remember a few years ago when the Raiders went to LA and Thousand Oaks, and Gruden was still the coach at the time, and man, they got off the bus and they had pads on already. They were already ready to go. To handle some business. And I know that practice didn't last but a minute. That practice was over like that. They got into one fight, turned into 12 fights. And it was like, all right. And that's the thing. Like, you don't get any work done then. And that's the thing. You want to be able to have that tenacity. You want to have the nasty. There's going to be a fight or two, like Lincoln said. But if it's controlled and you're able to get work done, that's when you get the most out of these joint practices. So that's what I'm hoping to see this afternoon.
Think about this, Chantel. You're playing one-on-one, and you're out there, wide receiver versus defensive back. You think the defensive back is going to play off? No, he's going to play press man.
Right.
How do you snatch a release? How do the receivers handle that? How do they handle the release on the line? How do you handle somebody playing physical? Now, they're going to have referees out there. They're going to have officials out there, but how likely are they to call defensive holding or pass interference? More importantly, you've got all the guys on both sides of the team and both sides of the ball behind you, cheering you on. Go get him, Q. Go get him. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Getting all riled up and fired up. Let's go. And then you complete a pass. You got one side cheering, the other side. Oh man, if you throw an interception, the other everyone's cheering. The defense is running down to the end zone, jumping around. There's going to be fans on hand. You know what I mean? So this is going to be a nice competitive day if we can get some work out of it, like you talking about.
And there's fans here.
Yes.
Remember that too. The fans are going to be in attendance. I'm interested to see that. Obviously, they're going to provide a lot of energy for the players. It's something that Pete Carroll has really leaned into since he's been here, and it's been great to see. I mean, after Sunday's practice, he was out there signing autographs. It was awesome. So I mean, he really appreciates the fans, and I'm really interested by the fans being here. But remember, the 49ers are coming to town too. So there's going to be 49er fans here as well. So I want to see what that blend is going to look like this afternoon.
Raider Nation, you got to be louder than the 49er fans. You know what I mean? That's just one of the most hated rivalries for me. It's still the battle debate of me, guys. In terms of the depth chart that came out for game 2, was there any surprises for you guys, or does it look pretty like it's what you thought it would be?
Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's pretty basic of what I expected to look like throughout the course of the preseason. And, there's still a couple ors on there, when it comes to the offensive line and the running back position. But for the most part, everything looks just like it's going to look. It's always going to be an unofficial. I don't want to say dumbed down because then that just sounds disrespectful, but it's just kind of it's put together. It doesn't mean a whole lot more than what the paper that is printed on, right? I mean, it kind of is what it is. These guys know where they stand. When they're running with the ones, that they're running with the twos, or whatever. You see it out there. So I don't think that the depth chart means a whole lot right now. It'll mean a little bit more once they finally set the 53 and they get the practice squad set up and they get ready for week 1 against New England. But right now, it's just one of those that football fans get excited to look at because it's like, oh man, here's the depth chart. That means we're getting closer and closer to the actual game.
Don't believe the hype. All right. There is no quarterback controversy. There's no Cam Miller going to make a surprise number 2. No, look, the roster has been set for some time in many people's minds, including mine. It's pretty much set. Now you have to see how it comes together and plays together. You can fine tune it, and you're going to do that. But the coaches, just like we talked about being vanilla when it comes to games, they're really not going to let you know exactly their thoughts because they don't want people to start gaming for that. If you know that you got a struggling left tackle, you're not going to sit there and not have a bunch of blitzes that come from that left side to make this, to expose that tackle. So they're really not going to show their hand. And that's what to be expected. And that's why most teams don't really release, a preseason depth chart. We can imagine who can be, but we don't do it. For pundits like us, they don't have to take it and run it. Well, why isn't JPJ in there? Instead of having listed as the starting guard, he's not there. Let the coaches coach. Mm-hmm. We will see what's going to show up. But, look, everyone's excited about football, and everybody wants to see the finished product. They are nowhere near the finished product. No. Most of these teams are nowhere near the finished product, and we probably won't see the finished product, per se, to the first month of the regular season, after the first month of the regular season.
Well, that's the key, too. But that's the key is you want to make sure, at least in my opinion, that you start the season. When they're headed to New England, they want to be able to hit the ground running. I see a lot of these teams, and we talk about it every year, that treat the first 4 weeks really like the preseason because they're not really getting that work. And Lincoln talks about it all the time. Players need to get players. They need to get reps. They need to get in football shape by playing football. And you see it too many times when it's the first 4 weeks of the season. And that's when you start to see sloppy play early on. And then all of a sudden, October comes around, mid-October. Oh, hey, that's who that team really is. Well, for the Raiders to take advantage and have an opportunity to have a really good season year 1 of Pete Carroll, it would be ideal for them to hit the ground running week 1.
Yeah, and just in case anyone was wondering, because we talk about continuity, when it comes to the O-line on this depth chart from left to right, and I feel like this is something we kind of expected, but Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, center, JPJ, it says, or Alex Kappa, because Alex Kappa hasn't obviously been able to take part in some practices, and then DJ Glaze. And I feel like, guys, this is what we're probably going to be getting for the regular season, and they're just trying to build that continuity. Would you agree, Link?
Yes, I would, and we have to see it come together. You know,
Right.
if you look at the Seattle game, you know, Dylan Parham, Cole Miller played one series with Geno Smith, and I expected that. I mean, I really didn't expect him to get a whole lot of burn in that first game. I think you try to just get a little bit of a lather, as I call it, and you go out there and play. And I think that if you saw that, I expect a lot more from him this weekend. And I'm hoping, and I got to hope. I hope that Pete Carroll and his staff don't sit there and jostle around with the possibility of putting this guy in. Let me put Q next to Link. Then let me put Chantel next to Link.
Right.
Don't, let's not do all that. Fine. Decide what you want to decide and let them go out and play. They're going to take their lumps. Every offensive line is. But the longer they stay together, the better they'll play together. And you have to establish that. And I think, much to what you were talking about, Chantel, that list of guys you ran off, there are a couple of question marks. We got to see how they do, how Jordan Meredith can hold up at the spot, how reliable can Dylan Parham be. Right. These are question marks that I have. DJ Glaze going in his second season. Does he take a little bit of a sophomore slump, even though he was a surprise in the rookie year? These are things, JPJ had a new position. These are all things that we have to see come together that will make up this offensive line. But this offense will not go without them.
Guy that hasn't practiced in about 4 or 5 practices now. I mean, we'll see if he's out there. Yeah, we'll see if he's out there today. But I mean, Lincoln says it all the time. You can't make the club in the tub, and it's been at least 4 practices. So right now, as long as JPJ continues to do what he's going to do and has been doing, I think that he'll be solidified as that right guard spot. And as long as Jordan Meredith continues to build on what he's been working on, I think he'll be that center. And the thing that stood out to me about Meredith is, and he told us yesterday when he met with us, that this staff approached him back in OTAs. Back in mandatory minicamp and said, hey, we want to see you at the center position. So instead of waiting till training camp for him to start learning how to play the center position, he took the summer to work on being a center and getting into the playbook and how he, has to react as a center. And so he went and did the work when the lights are off or when nobody's watching, right? I always say it's about the work that you do when nobody's paying attention. It's easy to do the work when everyone's focused in on you and they're telling you what to do, but he took it upon himself to go into the summer, learn how to play that center position, knew what his responsibilities were going to be. So when he hit training camp, he was ready for that opportunity. And so I got to give him a lot of credit for that, for a guy that does not play the center position to take on that challenge as he has.
And that's a big deal, guys. Chantel and Q. Yep. The fact is that when you have a young man stepping in that position, obviously the first thing that's going through his mind, or should be going through his mind, I got to get the snap back there.
Yep.
Got to make the snap back there. And what I call the term is blocking the box. The 5 guys are responsible for blocking the box. If you add 2 tight ends, then you have 7 guys who are responsible for blocking the box. The blocking the box means you block the line of scrimmage and the most dangerous 7 or 5 guys that you have, because it's one-on-one. You have to win that goal. And that's also when I come back to the MIM term, who's that mauler in the middle, because you have to separate that defense. You have to break that defense up in the middle and somewhere create separation. Yesterday, I saw them running a lot of zone plays, which I think fits for this offensive line, the style of this offensive line. Not a lot of man plays, not a lot of man blocking one-on-one, a lot of zone plays. If that's the case, they still have to get pushed. You have to displace that defensive lineman at least, or that defensive player at least 6 inches to a foot to be able to create a hole. You want this running back room to be successful, that offensive line's got to be successful.
Yeah, and Q, I think you make a really good point too, and that was a great nugget. The fact that the coaching staff went to a guy like Meredith during OTAs and let him know. So that means they kind of had an idea of what they wanted to do with the O-line way before. And I think that's what Raider Nation was panicking. I think people were panicked that they were just making that decision. And I was one of those people, I'm not going to lie. I was like, what are they doing to the O-line? But like you said, we just kind of expected JPJ to be that center, right? Like we just kind of expected it. So those are some great points. So Raider Nation, do not trip out just yet. We just got to let the coaches coach, as the guys have been saying. And coming up in the next, you got to let the coaches coach.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Right?
Beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. That's the coach's coach.
What a concept.
Novel. Man. Wonderful.
I know. The IQ on this show is at an unbelievable high right now.
Raise the bar.
But coming up in the next segment, we are going to talk about a trade rumor that an article came out on Sporting News, a little bit interesting for Raider Nation. So we're going to get into that next. And then in the other segment, coming up, the final segment, we're just going to get into some news and notes, obviously, from practices and training camp. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And something that I love about Monarch Money, everything that you spend, like apps, if you're ordering on like Uber Eats, it's all on there. So you see how much you're wasting a month and you can start making some changes to obviously get better financially. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, guys, I think I got it this time, right? No, did I?
Nope.
It's happening. It's happening again, but we're gonna add them back.
Nope.
I don't even remember how I did it. I think I got to add you to the stage. Yeah,
Hey,
there we go. There we go. I was talking about the IQ on the show, so I gotta raise the bar up for you guys.
You got it.
Listen, there was an article, Raider Nation, that was put out by Sporting News, and I thought it was really interesting because we've talked about the depth at the receiver position, and we're all thinking it's fine because guys are going to have to step up, and that's what you kind of want to see from the young guys. But Sporting News has actually linked the Raiders to a guy like Tyreek Hill, who's a speedster, and that could really change the dynamic of this team. But also, it's going to probably cost a lot. But the Raiders have the bread, right? So we'll start off with you first, Q. Should the Raiders go for a guy like Tyreek Hill? Do they need him?
I don't think they need him. Maybe I'm being blinded by being around the team all the time and seeing this thing come together. But one, they're trying to build a culture, right? And it's one thing about the play on the field, right? We know he's still one of the best wide receivers in the league. There's no mistake in that. He's got the speed. He can stretch the field. He's a playmaker. But they're trying to build this culture, this team, where it's all about the team. It's not about I. It's not about me. It's about we. And they all are rowing in the same direction. And I just don't think that that's a good idea to bring in a guy like that. We saw this guy walk off the field last year at the end of the season, literally quit on his team to the point where him and Tua, his quarterback, still are not on the same page, right? They're still having issues because he saw that man walk off the field. And look, I haven't been a professional football player. Lincoln has. I'm sure he'd feel some type of way if he saw his brother walk off the field when they're in the heat of the battle. Regardless if you're about to lose that or not, you don't walk off without me, right? And so it to me, I don't think that would make a whole lot of sense. They have a lot of guys in this room, the wide receiver room. We know they have a dynamic tight end. They have some young dudes that have an opportunity to grow. I think they're really fine with where they are, and they've got a couple guys that are speedsters in Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton. You can use that speed and don't have to have the headache that would be Tyreek Hill.
With everything that's going on in the world today, especially when it comes to sports, I appreciate the fact the Raiders have found a way to limit the amount of distractions. Mm-hmm. You go around the league, there are players that are like moths to a flame. They attract attention.
Yeah.
And sometimes not always in the positive ways. I think Tyreek Hill is a phenomenal player, a good player. Yep. Would I want him on my team? Hell no. Absolutely
right.
not. I think it's a distraction that you don't meet. Here's the thing. When you talk about a receiver or any type of playmaker of that dynamic, what's the first thing that follows when they're on a team? Well, how are you going to get them the ball?
Right.
How often why isn't he touching the ball?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need that. When you're trying to create a pleasurable, an understanding locker room or a place where guys want to come to work, you don't want guys necessarily looking over their shoulder like, is he going to be a distraction today? Mm-hmm. Am I going to have to pick up the paper or I'm going to look on social media and see he got baby mama drama? Right. No, I don't. You don't want that. Even though the Raiders have the money to spend, you have to be smart about it. Don't just take everything that's thrown your way. People ask me about Micah Parsons, tremendous player. Do I want him? Nope. Nope. Not right now. Not where he's at right now because he's tainted. He's tainted goods. You bring him into your team. Not only do you have to pay him a lot of money to make him comfortable, but then there's a focus going to be on him, no matter what the position is when you bring in a high-profile athlete. So the short answer to your question, and I did a little bit long, extended that I wanted to, no.
Right. Not needed.
No,
not needed, not desired, right? Again, I mean, this locker room is one that has to be It has to be all on the same page. And Lincoln's absolutely right. You bring a guy in like that, it's all about me. Get me the ball. Why am I not getting the ball? And it's not a good idea. It's not a good recipe. And I don't believe that's the culture that Pete Carroll's trying to create, or John Spytek for that matter.
Anybody remember Antonio Brown?
Devontae Adams?
I mean, yeah.
Goes on
right.
Should we? Do we need that? There you go.
Right.
Somebody came to training camp in a hot air balloon.
Like, is it true that the wide receivers are the biggest divas on the team? Because that's a narrative that goes around, right? Okay. Absolutely, I wanted to check in with you with that.
Back in my day, I had the pleasure of playing with Tim Brown and Jerry Rice, and I remember feeling bad for Rich Gannon coming off the sideline. We had Charlie Garner in the locker room, everyone else. Every time we come off to the sideline, I would hear the receivers like, I was open. I need to get the ball. I need to get my touches. I'm like, dude, you guys are both Hall of Famers, and you're going to get your touches. But Rich is like, yeah, I know. You were triple covered that time, but yeah, you were open. And so yes,
always open.
Always open. I'm always open. No matter how many people around me, I'm wanting to give me the ball. I need to get my touches in. So yes, they are the biggest divas.
I want to get more context in terms of this article that Sporting News. So ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that the Dolphins are open to that trade. Tyreek Hill says he wants that trade. And so what they did on a Bleacher Report, Brent Sobleski proposed a trade. And this is like a terrible trade that I would never make. And I want to get your guys' reaction. So they would send Hill to Las Vegas in return for tight end Michael Mayer, a 2026 fifth-round pick. Right away, right? Right away. Okay, great.
Right there. Let me tell you something real quick, and this is for Raider Nation. I think this is good stuff. This Raiders team loves Michael Mayer. They love Michael Mayer, and he has been very heavily involved in this offense far throughout training camp. He is going to be a guy, and I know we've been promised it for a couple of years since the Raiders traded up in the second round to go get him, that he was going to be a difference maker. I truly do believe that he's going to be a big part of this offense this year, and he's going to be a difference maker. We were promised a lot of 12 personnel last year, didn't get to see it. Going to see it this year. Michael Mayer is going to be heavily involved in this Raiders offense. So as soon as you talk about throwing out a trade and Michael Mayer is involved, I'm out.
For me, it's a number of intangibles that weren't mentioned in that article. First of all, I would not give up on Michael Mayer because I do think that's a talent that has yet to been truly developed.
Yep.
And especially when what you have already on the roster can be a total asset, a big find. And he's learned to block the perimeter, which is absolutely essential if you want to be able to run the football. But on the top of that, here's the thing. I don't want the baby mama drama that comes with Tyreek Hill. I don't want to take on that contract that comes with Tyreek Hill because I still think that there's a lot of wasted money going in that contract. Yep. I don't care how much of a speedster you are. He's not a very good route runner. He's a one-trick pony. Yeah. And if you're talking about stretching the field, you can find other guys that can do that if that's what you want. But you don't need to take on all the drama that comes with it. And then more importantly, in this city of lights where you have so many distractions, why would you bring a distraction in your locker room if you don't?
No, yeah, you don't need that. You don't want that. And the Raiders have their speed. They've got Trey Tucker. They've got Dante Thornton. Both these guys can stretch the field. And I'll tell you, we were in the indoor yesterday, and we were standing there watching practice, and I saw Thornton and Tyreek Hill. Now you got Tyreek Hill.
Case in point. There it is. Distraction.
There it is. Yeah. Trey Tucker, and Dante Thornton Jr. lined up on the same side of the field, and I thought, oh, my goodness. Pick your poison. What do you want to do? And our good friend Kadri Ishmael was standing next to us, and I said, well, what do you do with that? He said, pray. Pray the ball goes the other way because, man, that is right there. That is a 1-2 punch with that kind of speed. Look out. And those guys are a couple other guys that I think, especially Trey, is going to be involved in this offense as well, where they have not used him. They've used him as a one-trick pony so far in his short career. That's not going to be the case this year either. He's another guy that I've seen very heavily involved throughout the course of training camp.
And that's a great point that you guys make because they have young guys like Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton Jr. We're going to figure out what he's going to be as well. And he's a rookie, so they can give these young guys a chance rather than going and spending a lot of money on a guy like Tyreek Hill. Also, you're dealing with all the extra drama that comes with him. And I even forgot the fact it's in Vegas. Right. So you can get into a lot of trouble in Vegas. Like it's always that aspect that I forget about. And so it might be one of the toughest places to play as well, even though it's like probably one of the best destinations for a football player.
You know what? Just want to throw something in there onto that point because I get approached with that remark all the time about the being in Vegas and how it could weigh on somebody. Look, you can get in trouble in any city.
Any city.
Yeah.
And trust me, you can get in trouble. It doesn't matter what you do. You have the same amount in any city. Yes, Vegas is Sin City, and there's probably a lot more lights and a lot more glamour and glitz that's drawn with it. But you can get in trouble in Cleveland. I've gotten in trouble in Chicago. I've gotten in trouble in Buffalo. I've gotten in trouble in a bunch of places. Whether it's
so what you're saying is,
I'm in my fair share of trouble. There were cities that I could not go to without going into trouble. I remember this is why we never played well in Miami when we go to Miami. The moment we got off the plane, I'm in the streets. I'm hitting the South Beach. You know what I mean? I can give a damn about a football game. So, there's trouble everywhere, but you just don't necessarily need it. And one of the things I definitely celebrate Pete Carroll and the staff for, taking care of the Colton Miller situation before it became an issue.
Yep.
Limit the amount of distractions. When you turn on the TV today, you're not looking at Q's got issues with the Raiders. He doesn't want to be there. Or Lincoln's not happy with his position or his contract. Why isn't this? Those are with other teams, and you don't need those distractions when you're trying to build a team.
Yep, they did that this whole offseason. That has been one of the biggest things that I've noticed with John Spytek and this staff is they took care of Max back in March.
Yep.
Remember there was a 4-day period where Max was the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. 4 days. That's it. And then all of a sudden the Cleveland Browns had to give Myles Garrett the "we suck" tax and go up to $40 million a year because they, wanted to make their edge rusher happy. And then all of a sudden everyone followed in suit. So they took care of Max early. They took care of Colton. They got that done. So that wasn't a situation. They traded for Geno Smith so they can get desperate during the draft. Like the moves that they've made and the steps that they've taken since they've taken over this organization from the GM and the head coaching spot has really been smart, and they've gotten out in front of it. So they're not the ones that are on ESPN talking about this distraction or another day, another guy sitting out of practice and he's got his jersey on, but he's not practicing and what's going to happen or requesting a trade. You're not hearing that. It's always the organizations that are really quiet during the offseason and just go and handle their business and get put together where they end up becoming really good teams. The ones that are loud, AKA the Cowboys, right? For entertainment purposes only. That's what they're for. They're for entertainment purposes only. And hell, Jerry even came out and said it the other day. You know what? I like to stir it up every once in a while to keep our name in the mix, which is ridiculous.
Now keep in mind, guys, every notable player keep in mind every notable player that's available right now or possibly available because the Raiders have money, someone's going to tie him into the Raiders. Doesn't matter what position he plays. Doesn't matter where he's at. Every notable player that comes up, Micah Parsons, Tyreek Hill. Oh, they're not happy there. What are they going to do? But here's the thing. Do you want to take on those contracts? Do you want to take on those headaches? If you don't, then you got a young team. There's so much promise, so much undiscovered talent that's on this roster right now. You have to see what you have in the cupboard before you go shopping is what I always say.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well, just everything that you guys said. Also, I always wondered why you guys played bad in Miami. I thought it was the 10 a.m. game. I was like, naturally, we never play well at 10 a.m., right?
After staying out all night at Bed's Club or Strawberries, the dance club. I mean, hey.
The game kicked off at 10. They got in at 9:45. So
that's exactly right.
Okay, we're getting all the tickets here on the Raiders Squad show today. But coming up in the next segment, we are going to break down some news and notes and probably get into a little bit of a deeper dive on a guy like Ashton Jeanty, who obviously didn't have the best performance in that preseason week 1 game. But don't worry, Raider Nation, don't hit that panic button just yet. A lot to look forward to. That's coming up next in the next segment. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad show. Welcome back, Raider Nation. And the screen is perfect because I didn't have to read from any of our sponsors. So there we go. Now we're back on track. All right, guys, here's the thing about the first preseason week 1 game. I had a lot of Raider Nation haters hitting me up on my phone, talking smack to me about Ashton Jeanty. And it's like, he barely got any burn, right? It's that first preseason week 1 game. No reason to panic. I also feel like at the same time, the coaches aren't going to put a heavy workload on him because he's going to have a heavy workload all year long. But what are we kind of expecting from him in this, not only joint practice, but also this week 2 game against the 49ers on Saturday? We'll go with you first, Q.
I think the joint practice is going to show something, right? I mean, it'll show something because the offensive line will have an opportunity to be really physical with the 49ers defensive line. So you get to see Jeanty a little bit. But to be honest about the situation, I've been trying to tell Raider Nation this for a while. They're just trying to get my man to the starting gates, right? They need to get him to the starting blocks. Like you said, Chantel, I think you hit it on the head. He's going to have a heavy responsibility this year. They don't need him to shine and be the man and be this great toy to go out there and roll out. They don't need him in the preseason to do that. They don't need him in all these practices to do that. They are making sure that they get him just enough burn. He gets up to speed. He knows what he's doing. this dude could run. I mean, that's what he is. He's a runner. He's a baller. He's going to be a key cog to this Raiders offense. So they're trying to make sure that he's ready for New England. They're not really worried about him being ready for Seattle or San Francisco or the Cardinals.
Q, how many carries did Ashton have last year? And was it wasn't 330?
It was something like that. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I no longer think that there are backs in the National Football League who are really capable of carrying the ball 300 times a game. A season. I think it's running back by committee. With that being said, and the committee that they have in this running back room, I want to cut, if it was like 330, I want to cut that in half. That's the total amount of carries that I want to get Ashton. Now, much to your point, we want to see him go. I think once they finalize the ideology of what they want this offensive line to do, then they can promise and give him more carries. But the last thing I want to do, and there's been times that I've seen it in practice where backs are trying to make cuts in backfield. That does you no good. If you're not buying the line of scrimmage or winning the line of scrimmage, you're making cuts in the backfield, you've already slowed down the running game. Because now you've got guys that are indecisive of how getting downhill. So there's got to be more true definition of cutting that defense in half, creating those holes in the interior, and being able to run the football. And I don't think the Raiders are there yet. With that being said, I think they can be there, and you're going to be able to see a lot more of that development in these joint practices because you have that competitive edge that you're going to bring out of your offensive line, that you're going to bring out of your receivers, everyone that's involved in those run drills and even those team drills. You're going to have a chance to do that. So Chip Kelly's going to showcase his knowledge and call the right plays to get everybody in the right position. Now it's up to the players to go out there and execute. But I do think Ashton Jeanty is going to get his carries. You just want to make sure it's limited and make sure that it's worth something. You're not just going out there just to be seen out there. You make sure that it's worth something. You get him in open space, I think he can make people miss, but you have to truly create those holes in order for him to get downhill right now.
Yeah, that last carry that he got on Thursday was the one that he lost 4 yards, and Caleb Rogers, the rookie, just completely whiffed on the block. And so before Ashton got the ball in his belly, he's already jump cutting. He's already like, it's an OS block, like, and then he had to get out the way. And, we saw Josh Jacobs have to do that too many times while he was a member of the Raiders as well. So you don't need that, right? And like Lincoln said, you got to get that offensive line solidified. We know what Ashton can do when given offensive line to be able to block. And it's funny, I was talking to Chris Canty yesterday on my radio show, and he said he's a BYOB, or he's a bring your own blocker, but he shouldn't have to be, right? He didn't, he's those guys where you put that offensive line together and he's going to be good to go. And there are other guys in that running back room as well that can complement him, like a Zamir White, who looks a lot better than he did last year. Also a Sincere McCormick. And then you got the old Wiley veteran, Raheem Mostert, who's a touchdown machine. So I don't think you're going to see 300 carries from Ashton this year. I'm thinking probably about 200-ish, maybe a little bit more, depending on how many catches he gets out of the backfield. But I don't think he's a 30 carry a game type guy like it was back in the day.
Yeah, when you talk about guys like Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, the young guys getting in there, you obviously want to get them some playing time. But because at least last week when Seattle, it was so loud, those guys were getting off the ball late, especially when they tried to run the football. There were just so many people shooting the gaps. It was porous. There was no room to run. That's why they had to really, and plus the score, had to revert to more of the passing game, and they were pretty much ineffective until the second half. And then people started, blaming it on Cam Miller. Oh well, Cam, no, pump your brakes. The game has decided itself many times over, and so these young guys have got to get the right amount of burn. They just haven't defined that true offensive line to really give the running backs a true look. Everything else has been scripted in practice, so you can make any play look good in practice.
Right?
You know what I mean? Oh, that's not Maruski.
We're talking about practice,
not a game. Not a game. So and then this running back room will be well as soon as this offensive line gets defined.
Yeah, and the running back room is actually really interesting to watch during training camp, to watch during these preseason games, because we want a guy like Zamir White to obviously show out, but then there's Sincere McCormick, and then also Mostert, who is a veteran. So I feel like there's depth there, and at the same time, it's exciting to watch. And Pete Carroll, naturally, just based off history, he likes to run the football a lot. Yeah. Right. So we're going to see Jeanty get the ball a lot. And, hopefully the O-line's going to open up those holes for him, and it's going to look smooth. And that's what I think Raider Nation wants to see. Another guy I wanted to ask you guys about, because a lot of people are praising him, is Devin White. And the big question coming into this season was, what Devin White were we going to get? Were we going to get that OG Devin White from Tampa that was an absolute beast? What are you guys hearing about Devin White so far? And what are you expecting from him, just in terms of not only this joint practice, but this preseason week 2 game?
It's funny, man, when you think of Devin White and from watching him at practice, he's the guy I like to say that rides the roller coaster of emotions. He's that guy. Yesterday, he was playing the air guitar. He was playing at a high level, right? He was practicing at a high level, making plays. All of a sudden, he pulled out the air guitar, and I said, "Ooh, if you're getting that Devin White, you're getting a fantastic player." This week, he's had multiple interceptions. He's had some pass breakups. You've seen Devin White appear. Now, what we saw on Thursday when he was olaying and trying to get some tackles, and he was trying to tackle high, and he wasn't looking too good, he wasn't air guitaring. He looked like he was, kind of figuring things out, and he was going really slow. So he's one of those that kind of rides the emotions. But if you get Devin White when he's on that high and when he's playing at a good level, and you see him with a big smile on his face, you're going to get a hell of a player. You're hoping to see that more times than not.
I go back to the day when Devin White was drafted. I had heard stories and rumors that he wanted to be a Raider, and he was mad that the Raiders didn't pick him.
I was too.
I think that was Cleveland Farrell.
Cleveland Farrell went one pick before.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone told me, you can't pick a linebacker at 4. I said, why? You can pick one at 5.
Exactly. True story. So with that being said, I think, and this also being a prove-it contract for him, I think this is going to be a big year for him. He's got to be in the right place in the right time. And also, when you look at just the whole parameters of the way the linebacker room is formed, here you got a safety that comes in off the street, walks in, and becomes a will linebacker. So you know that nothing is given. You've got to go out there and earn it. And I do think this linebacker room will definitely do that. This attacking style defense means that everybody has to be on the same page, hitting the same holes. Last week we saw them, a lot of guys out of place, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they got burned for it. So both in coverage and run support, this defense has got to be good. I think Devin White's going to be good. I expect him to have a big year this year, as long as he can stay healthy.
He's got a lot to prove. He's got a lot to prove as well. I mean, like Lincoln said, he's on a 1-year deal. He doesn't have any guaranteed money, and so you could always chase the money when you're looking at a 90-man roster and you're talking about cutting it down to a 53-man roster. Well, where can you trim some of the fat if they're not playing at a high level? It's real easy to get rid of a contract that doesn't have any guaranteed money on it.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to say as well, because another guy at, linebacker, Jamal Adams, has been making some noise as well. And I believe he's moving up on the depth chart, if I'm not too mistaken. What are you guys hearing about Jamal Adams? And obviously, this is a position for him that he's playing in the NFL that, he naturally wasn't playing before. We'll go with you first, Link.
Well, it's more of a buzz safety in other defenses. Now he's a will linebacker. So he's in the thick of things. And look, Jamal has a great tenacity around the football. He will be a good tackler. He will shoot the gap and be able to get to guys and be able to shoot some of those holes and sort of define the run game for other offenses. But he also is a little bit of a liability in the coverage area. So you have to play around with that. So with that being said, that either puts more emphasis on the safety behind him or maybe the possibility of you bringing a nickel. He looks smaller, so there'll be more teams that are thinking that the Raiders are in a nickel defense, even though they're in their solid 4-3. That's an advantage for the Raiders, because they can stop the run. Most offenses want to run against a nickel defense because they think you're undersized. We can be able to match up. Well, Jamal Adams has been able to defeat blocks. He's quick enough to beat tackles and guards to a point of interest and be able to shoot gaps. So I think that's where he becomes the run definition. But he becomes somewhat of a liability in the pass. So if you have teams that are going to spread him out and open up, you might have to go to a true nickel. You might have to go to a true dime. You can't afford to keep 3 linebackers in because now you're being exposed on the second level, the intermediate level. So I think it's a work in progress. I like what I've seen so far, Chantel and Q. I like what I've seen, and I think he's going to be there. But again, it's much like Devin White. This is also a proven contract for Jamal Adams. This is an opportunity to show Pete Carroll when he called him up, I'm ready to go, that he is ready to go. Same thing for Jeremy Chin. Same thing for a lot of these veterans that are on that defensive side. Yeah,
and look, the thing about Jamal Adams is he's healthy, right? That's the biggest thing. He hasn't been healthy in a couple of years. The injury that he suffered was a gruesome injury, and it took a heck of a battle for him to come back. But you could tell that he is absolutely healthy right now. He will have a package for him. He's because again, like Lincoln said, he is a liability in coverage. So you've got to be smart with when you use him. But in certain times, he's going to be a true asset to this Patrick Graham-led defense. I think this is a really good chess piece, just like Jeremy Chin when he comes up from the safety spot and plays the big nickel. I think that he's an asset as well because he's a physical dude. He's a short tackler, and you have guys like that out there on the field at the same time. Then all of a sudden you have something. You're working with something, not to mention you got a Landon Roberts in the middle of the defense as well. So I think Patrick Graham has a lot of different chess pieces that he could work with that's going to make this defense look a lot different than what we saw last year or even the year before.
There was a play yesterday, I remember in practice, and Q, correct me if I'm wrong. There was the offense ran what we call all go, where all 4 receivers are doing streak routes. Jeremy Chin was in, he's covering the tight end. And the tight end came, I can't remember which tight end it was, but the tight end came out and had a step on him initially. And that the quarterback at the time, and I think it was Geno Smith, wanted to go up long, and he was down the seam route. It was the seam route, and it looked like Jeremy was about to be beat.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a great job of using his eyes to follow the receiver's hands. And the moment the ball came in, he knocked it down.
Yep.
That created such a roar amongst the defense. They were ranting and raving because it almost came with an interception. And that just showed you how much Jeremy has been working on that position and working on that trait to not be a liability when he's put in that position. Because there are many times where these safeties are going to be tested.
Yeah.
If they're in the right, proper place in the coverage, can they cover? And they're going to be forced to cover. And I think Jeremy has shown great signs of that. So much like the other guys that we talked about, Devin White and Jamal Adams, have those proven contracts. They have to go out there and still show that they can do it when the time calls.
And I think one of the focuses is, I know we have a minute here, but is the secondary, because there's so many questions. And one guy that was surprising to me that like came out of nowhere, not really, but like kind of surprised me, was Kyu Blu Kelly.
Yeah.
Because he's making a lot of noise, and I love to see that. What are you guys hearing from him? And do you believe he'll get a lot of burn in this preseason week 2 game?
Well, the thing is he's listed on 3rd on the depth chart when it comes to the nickel corner, but he's been playing the outside as well, right? And so these guys have been interchangeable. He made a hell of an interception the other day off Aiden O'Connell. He climbed a ladder where I thought the ball was going to sail smooth out of bounds. He climbed a ladder, made the play, and took it to the house. So, yeah, he's just showing what he could bring to the table. He's a local kid as well, so it's always cool to see a local guy do good and do it for the home team and everything. But, yeah, he's going to make some noise. I'm going to see a lot of him today at the joint practice, and we'll probably see a lot more of him on Saturday in the game.
That's what I appreciate. Quick and short and sweet. I like these young guys who take full advantage of the opportunities they have before them. And whether you're a wily old vet, like we talked about, the 3 guys that have been around the way, but they still have proven contracts, or a young guy just getting an opportunity. You might be overshadowed by other names, but when you get a chance to go out there and make a play, you do it.
All right, Raider Nation. Well, that's it for today, because Q and Link are at the facility. They're going to see what's going on with the joint practice and give us all the news and notes when we get back here on Monday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, also 10:30 a.m. Eastern time if you're a Raider fan on the East Coast. Guys, any final thoughts before we get up and out of there? Have they been feeding you well over there? Like, is there like a media meal for you guys or anything like that?
Lincoln got he got his,
I'm gonna eat.
He got his food already. I got my water here. I got my energy drink. I'm good to go. We'll get a little food a little bit later.
I'm going out there to fight the 49ers. I'm going out there. One of us fights, we all fight. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm guns out, guns out. I'm ready to go.
I'm getting in behind my blocker.
That's right. That's what we're going to do.
I'm gonna get in behind my blocker. I got this.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys are hyped. We'll be back, Raider Nation, on Monday. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks so much for rocking out with us, and we'll be back next week.